Welcome to the Swinging Lights. Today's guest is Greg Midgley of Timechimp. Timechimp is Greg's current solo project where he can be as odd and eccentric as he likes, and I mean that in the best way possible. I mean, after all, his Instagram feed is what gets me up every morning. It's creative and it's absolutely hilarious. If there's one thing you take away from this episode, it is to follow Timechimp on Instagram. Now, Greg has been in many bands over the years. If you've lived in Utah for any number of time and you're into music, you've probably heard of the Rubes. The Rubes have been a Utah staple for over a decade. Greg has also played in a bunch of other bands such as the Moths, Flex, Bronco. He currently plays keys in a country band called Triggers and Slips. He's helped collaborate on other albums, one being the Bob Moss tribute album that he helped Mike Kirkland record, and which is a great album as well. So he's been all over the place. Chances are you've seen him play at clubs and music venues and didn't even know he was there because he's such a humble guy, such a cool, chill, humble dude, man. I really had a great time, talking with him in the bus. I mean, we could have went on and on for hours and hours. It was a great time. So I'm gonna be done rambling now. So let's get into this episode.
As far as how I conceive of like doing a band project. Like really, going for it or whatever. But yeah. you probably have the same scenario. People have to work for a living.
Yeah.
It's that balance between working and, being able to do your music and
right.
and feel like you're
tough.
Getting satisfaction from what you're working on. I think that's, for a lot of people once they get, I'm not considering myself old, but,
right.
in your 30s or in your 40s,
yep.
That's a little trickier.
And when you have like a real job and you're making real money,
exactly.
You're not going to like take off and go, let's go
It's
tour,
hard to quit.
right?
It's hard to quit your job
yeah.
that you've already, spent years to kind of get a foothold in
mm-hmm.
and be able to, very few jobs allow you the flexibility to just like take 3 months off at a time so you can go on
right.
tour or whatever.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just grateful we're still all friends and able to get together and play
yeah.
and enjoy each other's, company.
Hell
even
yeah.
if it's, I wish it was more often. I wish we were, like playing, a gig or two every month in addition to the Bar X stuff that we have as our kind of like regular night. But it works kind of good too, because then that's like a comfortable arrangement for everybody.
Oh, for sure. That place is cool, man. And it's
Yeah.
like got a built-in crowd.
When
You're
we
not
first-
sitting there having to text every friend and family member to come to a show, right?
When we first started to do it, and that was, it's probably depressing how long ago. It's probably been like 8 years or something since we started it. I thought, this is going to be a bummer. It's a Sunday night. Nobody's going to come. I'm just going to, feel like this is not worth our time. And there have been some nights where it's kind of dead or slow. But actually, it's usually a pretty good crowd there. And we've even sometimes, or at least I've noticed, maybe our bass player Tommy's the best one at getting people to come. I've noticed some familiar faces, repeat customers. I'm like, oh wow, I actually had a couple people come down to Bar X to hear us play. So
hell yeah.
It's been a way. It's quite a journey from at least from whenever I started doing music, and you're so goal oriented and like, all right, we're gonna make a record, and we're gonna get on the community radio station, or like, send out our promo kit and try to build our fans.
Right.
We'll go back to that same venue that we played in Idaho or in Colorado or Arizona and like see if we can kind of take it over one region at a time.
Right.
And as time passes and you're doing it, with a little less eye on, here we're gonna, crack open the music biz, but we're just doing it because we still enjoy playing music.
Well, it got tough. It got tougher.
Sure.
It's like with the internet, it kind of is a cool thing, but a bad thing at the same time, because with the internet, there's like, everybody with a computer and Pro Tools can pump out music, and everybody's on all the social medias. Like, there's just so many options for entertainment.
It's definitely
right?
information
Overload.
super abundance. Yeah, and
It's
so
too much.
you know, you got a lot of competition just for, you know, people's Friday night.
Yeah, for people.
I can remember playing gigs with the Rubes when we first started, and we'd have a packed house at the Urban Lounge, and you know, it wasn't necessarily because we were such marketing geniuses or great at promoting ourselves.
Right.
There was just kind of a larger scene or crowd for, you know, kind of going to hear a rock show at a local bar, you know.
Right.
And it's been progressively harder over the years to kind of like, you know, build or maintain that kind of, you know, fan base or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the secrets are.
I always had such a kind of a flippant attitude about it. Anyways, it's like,
Right.
well, if people like it and will come, that's just icing on the cake.
Right.
It's more. I just enjoy playing music and performing, and so
I've always enjoyed your stuff, man. It's fun.
It's fun to.
You're entertaining.
It's fun to kind of, you know, treat it like a game of chess, and how do you plan the next move that, you know, can like elevate your visibility in the public eye. But at the same time, I always kind of buckled against making that the whole MO behind everything I'm doing. You know?
I get that. And the platforms are always changing.
Yeah.
Like, it was MySpace years ago, and that was the thing. And the first people that got on there got it good, and then it was Facebook. And Facebook seems like it's dying a slow death. And then it seems like Instagram is one of the good ones now. Twitter, but I've never really understood Twitter. So I
haven't really.
I have no idea
I
how it
haven't
works.
dived into Twitter too heavily myself.
It just seems like people get into a lot of debates on there and shit.
Yeah, it's kind of, well, my main consciousness of it was, you know, apart from the, you know, kind of political discourse, is like a lot of comedians will get on there and kind of tweet their material and see, like, test the waters.
Right,
like,
but you got to be careful what you say on there, man. People lose their whole careers.
People do lose their whole careers because they think, oh, that's just a joke. You know, come on.
Yep.
You know, I was just joking, but
yeah, man, you can't.
It can blow up on you.
Got to be real careful with that shit, man.
I think that's kind of true of any performing space.
Mm-hmm.
It's just people don't always perceive it or see it as a performance or, you know, a public space.
Right.
There's just some kind of weird disconnect in their brain sometimes that it's like,
and we live in a country that has had freedom of speech, and freedom of speech means you get to be an asshole, and that's a good thing, right? But you start controlling that, and people walking on eggshells all the time. It's like, then what? Just gets sterile. Everybody's too scared to speak up.
Yeah, I think that you're right. It cuts both ways. People are, you know, kind of sort of just turns into one homogenous kind of perspective, or, you know, kind of public voice that people use, or, you know, it just polarizes, and, you know, you either kind of follow this bold, outspoken, I don't care if I offend anyone,
right,
kind of, you know, way of talking, or you have another timid point of view. It's just, it's weird.
It's bizarre.
I've never been able to.
The thing is you can get on there and you can tear the president of the United States apart. Nobody's getting in trouble for that.
Right.
But you go after the wrong person, or you have the wrong idea, then it's like you're done. So it's like a double standard. It's so weird to me, man. It's so bizarre.
It's wild.
Yeah, and then you got a president who, you know, is on video saying that he grabs women by their crotch, right, their pussy, and yet we hang out, like the judge guy, Kavanaugh, just got in trouble. You got Louis C.K., you got all these like other people that have been busted for this, but yet the guy running this whole show in the United States is like that. It's such a double weird standard, man. I don't get it.
It's hard to wrap your brain around who, you know, is allowed, you know, unlimited extra lives.
Yeah,
and
it's
who
so
is
weird.
like, you spent your one life, game over for you.
Yeah, I just don't understand how everybody all of a sudden just turned into a bunch of pansies, man. It's like everybody's offended, everybody's oppressed, everybody's got an oppressor, and it's like, it's so bizarre.
Yeah,
man. We're trying to make the world safe, like we want to make it safe, and it's like it's never gonna be safe. It's never gonna be safe.
Right. I mean,
so what's the option? Be strong. Teach your kids to be strong. You be strong. Don't let things bother you so much,
Yeah, this tendency to blame everyone else for your problems and for, anything that you're not happy about in your life. It just kind of seems misguided to me sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think some responsibility has to rest with you and the way that you react to the things that happen. And undoubtedly there's injustice and there's things that we need to change in the culture at large. That having a discussion of it, whatever that means, whatever channel, whether it's these little glib 20-second or 180 words or whatever it is on Twitter, you can't really have any kind of nuanced conversation.
No, you're just getting little teeny.
It's such a bite-size,
It's like playing the original NES, right? How many bits was that?
I think part of
16-bit?
Part of it too is like we've lost a lot of that face-to-face.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Dialogue too. When I was at the gym the other day, I was talking to this guy. It came up totally kind of unexpectedly that I was talking to another person when we were just in the whirlpool, and he seemed like somebody who was a person who hasn't been an American. He was, I think, Chinese, and he's asking me my opinion of Trump, and I was trying to be somewhat diplomatic, like, the jury's still out. In general, I don't really favor how he's running the show. And then this other guy, who is obviously your dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter, takes me through a, 90-minute, getting on his soapbox and talking about the 25th Amendment, and, he's obviously has spent some time thinking about all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And, he has his reasons to have such strong convictions, but, I think, that's probably the first time in years, maybe not years, but in a long time, I've actually face-to-face talked with somebody who, has a
different
somewhat different political perspective. Yeah. And, I could have at any time in that conversation just kind of given up or been like,
But don't you think it's important to think what the other half of the United States is thinking? Like
I felt like this was an opportunity for me to try to understand, a point of view that is driving a lot of people's, responses to everything right now.
And that's a mature way to approach it. Because if you don't know what the other half of the United States is thinking.
Right.
It's ridiculous. Like, both sides, we need each other. It's the yin and the yang. If you go all left, this way, all left, it's bad.
Yeah.
If you go all right, it's bad. Like, you need the yin and the yang in between, and I think the problem is that everybody's so like, I'm this way, so I'm always going to vote this way. It's like, well, we all need to be, communicating. We all need to be understanding, what's going on.
If we can't actually rationally navigate the problems and the issues that are coming up as fellow citizens, it's just driving us further into this
it's
quagmire.
It's like tribalism, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on this team, I'm all in. It's like, well, guess what? Both teams have really good ideas, and both teams have some shit ones.
Right.
And so if you just are going to side with the team just straight up and just ignore the other team, it's ridiculous. I just don't get it. Like, I don't
Sure.
consider myself to be one way or the other. I have a tough time even just paying attention to it at all, to be honest.
Yeah,
with you.
sometimes I definitely want to take kind of the classical cynic in the Greek sense, perspective on politics and just be a non-participant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a bit disingenuous to complain about anything or, say
Right.
that,
But in honesty, a
nothing
lot of
can
it's out of
improve.
your control.
There is a lot that
Like
on the surface seems like my action impacts it very little.
Yeah.
You know,
On the big scale.
On
You can vote. Here's do you know who Jordan B. Peterson is? Have you ever heard of this guy?
who's he?
He's a clinical psychologist. He is a professor up at Toronto. He blew up in the media like maybe last year because he spoke up against Bill C-16, I think is what it's called, in Canada, where they wrote into the law. Well, they were trying to pass the law that they were coming up with like 83 different gender-specific pronouns, punishable by law if you didn't refer to people that way.
Wow.
So he like spoke up against it, and he got labeled as a transphobe and everything else.
Right.
But it really all came down to like, this is a freedom of speech issue. I don't have a problem with transgendered people, but when you write into the law what you can and can't say and how you have to speak and stuff, that becomes a slippery slope. So he blows up in that. Whether you like him or not, it doesn't matter. The one thing that he has been preaching and driving home, and it just kind of makes me laugh, but it's so real. He's like, is your room clean? If it isn't, literally, you can't even keep your own little world organized. You can't even keep that straight, and you're out there complaining and bitching about everything else,
Right.
things that are happening on the other side of the planet that isn't even really a part of your reality because you've never fucking been there.
Yeah.
He's like, the way you change the world is you start with yourself. Get your own place in order.
Undoubtedly, if you want to
Get
make
your
the
room
world a better
clean.
place,
Yeah.
start by doing things within your
Yep.
community and within
Exactly.
your day-to-day life.
Get
that-
your shit together first,
Yeah.
then your family, then your community. Like, that's how we change the world. Bitching about something that's happening in China. China doesn't even really exist in my world because I've never been there.
Yeah.
I read about it, and it's sad, some of the stuff. Some of the stuff in Iraq and Iran, I'm a little more on the front of that one because I take care of veterans, but I've
Uh-huh.
never been there.
Right.
I don't know how the hell you fix the damn thing. So to sit there and bitch about it, but I can barely keep my own life organized, so why am I bitching about that?
It's tough because, just depending on the think piece or the, opinion that you read, we're dealing with, a fascist threat from the right side. And to my, senses, sometimes what I hear from the other side of the fence sounds like it's bordering on fascist thought.
Any time you go extreme, either
Yeah.
way, you go that way, man.
And so
It gets that way.
It gets
It's bad.
it gets very disorienting, and I have no claim to like
But it's strange. It's
know,
strange times we're
the
living
path
in because
forward.
if you think about it, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, when we were teenagers in high school, the internet was maybe, sort of, kind of.
It was. I remember it was starting up. I
Yeah, but
could
like-
dial into this local thing, this BBS,
Yeah, but I mean,
And,
it wasn't.
and it would. It was such an age of innocence back then, at
Yeah.
least for me, because maybe that's because I was a teenager. But it's like having little harmless conversations about which bands I liked, or
Uh-huh.
like some movie, or just kind of the shallow entertainment of the times,
Right.
or I'm sure that there was times that people get into heavy political or philosophical discussions in that realm, but it has expanded at such a rapid rate.
Well, you
that-
can't pick your nose and eat it in public anymore without somebody videotaping it and
Right.
put it on the internet.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that long ago where you didn't hear about every fucking calamity in the world happening like 5 seconds after it happened. Like, I don't think we're ready for that, man. Like, to be bombarded with every single
My
event that's
observation
happening all over the
from
planet.
working with, teenagers and younger kids, is they kind of develop a sort of filter mechanism, that's kind of like, oh, I didn't know about that. It's sort of like they might encounter it, but it doesn't register.
What do you do for a living?
So I have just in this last year gotten more full-time working at the library.
Okay.
And then I, for the last about 8 or 9 years, have worked part-time as a music teacher.
Oh, cool.
And so I've been kind of trying to get my day job situation into like a full-time thing at the library.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I went back to school too at kind of the beginning of... I didn't really know that I was going to fall into teaching, but when I went back to school, I had a friend who was starting up a little, kind of like in the realm of rock and roll, what do they call it? School of Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of copying that template.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so I said, okay, I don't have a whole lot of teaching experience, but I'll try it. And so
it's a skill.
You can schedule your time in a way that's helpful when you're going to school, going to college.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely a skill. This, like, learning how to play an instrument.
Oh, yeah.
It's a whole other skill, learning how to
teaching
teaching an instrument.
Exactly, man. Because somebody could be so good, and you're like, teach me. Like, I've taken lessons in the past from somebody I thought was really good that didn't really know how to teach yet, right?
Right.
Teaching's a whole different skill, man.
Yeah,
do
sure
you even
is.
remember how you learned?
As far as my own experience learning an instrument,
Yeah.
or how I learned to teach?
No, how you learned to play an instrument.
Oh.
It's like, I
Sure.
don't know.
It's a crazy hodgepodge of, formal lessons, time spent with other friends and musicians, just kind of picking up by osmosis what I
Right.
could,
but you can
working
teach
from books
and get people to get there quicker if you're good at teaching.
Right.
But if you look back at when you learned, and it's like, well, shit, I don't know. Like, where do you even start?
The whole goal is that somebody might have a less haphazard, random learning process than I had.
Right.
And of course, it's sometimes, a pretty tall order to think that other people wouldn't have the same, kind of you learn and you develop in so many different ways. Not everybody has like this rigid Austrian,
Right.
First I must master scales, then I must master, Bach's first book of Well-Tempered Clavier,
Right.
Everybody has a different path, and I think usually it's that you develop the technique and the ability, kind of in step with what you need to be able to express.
Mm-hmm.
And so
what instruments do you teach?
So piano and guitar.
Nice.
Every once in a while I have a student who will want to do the bass guitar,
Uh-huh.
and I'm no, accomplished bassist, but I can get them going.
Right.
And sometimes that's fun, kind of like once in a while we do a bass lesson instead of a
Uh-huh.
piano lesson.
Nice.
If they're, kind of, it keeps them excited or motivated about it to kind of like branch out and try different things. Most of the time, it's hopefully they kind of settle on one instrument to like, kind of focus what they're
Right.
trying to practice. Because the goal is always to just get somebody into a routine.
Right.
That's really where it usually happens for everybody, is once you finally kind of be like,
I
whether
imagine
it's,
that you make it pretty fun for them.
I try
'Cause
to.
I think you're a fun person.
I figure like half of the battle is that you just enjoy coming to your lesson.
Absolutely,
And
man.
so, sometimes I might feel like I'm a little corny trying to, keep things lighthearted or, crack a joke or whatever.
Yeah.
But I've just observed from watching other good teachers.
Yeah. Well, that's the key. Like,
that,
I watched my
that
daughter.
really, had more success or chance for success than the kind of like, stone-faced teacher. Nope, incorrect. Play again.
Right.
This time, with the metronome on 75. There's a time and a place for that. Some students who have a lot of natural talent and are ambitious with where they want to go.
Yeah.
At a certain point, they might need that teacher
Sure.
who's going to kick them in the pants and tell them, like, you're not as good as you think you are. You got to keep working.
Absolutely.
And so they're, maybe I've had one or two students that, I felt like I had to kind of kick their butt a little bit.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I think, even then, even with that student, we have to be able to hang out, and that time is enjoyable for both of us.
For sure.
So my main thing is trying to get them to consider that if they can do all the fundamentals, then they could be their own teacher.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to really dig too deep into playing Queensryche guitar solo or something like that.
Sure.
I guess I could if I wanted to dedicate my life to that.
Right.
But
you're not going to go out and learn all the songs.
There's just music is such a vast ocean that generally we all kind of find what we like to play, and we gravitate to the sounds and the styles, and so
right.
If that kind of falls within my purview, then great. We might dig deeper into that stuff and learn how to play some Booker T and the MG's songs, or some Rolling Stones stuff or whatever. But if their thing is that they're excited about progressive metal, then hopefully if we just light the fire that we know how to understand musical fundamentals, they'll be able to work on it. And if they need to get another teacher someday who's more of an expert in that, then
right.
they can. But I make it a big focus that we choose things together to work on.
Right.
Because my rationale is if they like it, they're more likely to want to practice.
Right.
And to just stay.
It should be fun, man.
Music's fun.
It should be fun.
It's always been what
my
it
daughter.
represented
She
to
went
me.
to piano, right?
Uh-huh.
Piano lessons, and it was this lady. My ex-wife signed her up for this lady, and she was just in the neighborhood, and she taught lessons to the kids and stuff. But it was boring as shit.
Right.
And my kid, she learned how to play the piano. She knows how to get around the piano, but she freaking hated it. She hated it. And it's it should be fun first. And then once it's fun and you get into it,
then
you figure
take
it all
it serious
out,
and you develop that discipline. Yeah.
So now she hasn't taken lessons for probably 4 years, but I have a keyboard at my house, so when she's with me, she can just go in and mess around.
Go in and explore.
Yeah, and she's in the singing choir group. She just got into 9th grade, which is high school at Brighton.
Uh-huh.
And she's in the choir, and they're doing all these Beatles songs.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, she's way into the Beatles. I was like, hey, check this out. Pulled out this Beatles book with all the songs, and so she's sitting there on the piano singing, and she's having fun now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Beatles was the turning point for me.
Well, you hit that light. It's starting to kind of get dark. I don't want to lose your face.
No.
There's a little switch there.
This one right here?
Nope. Right there. There we go. There we are.
Yeah, so that's great. I think it's just you have to find what you're enjoying with it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the formal, traditional music lesson thing does not work well for certain people.
Mm-mm.
And the problem there is that there's never any pleasure in what you're working on.
Right.
And so
give them some information and show them how they can use it musically in a fun situation.
Yeah.
And then it sticks better, right?
At least that's my approach, but I always kind of try to specify. It's look, I mostly play popular music. If your goal is to play classical music, there's a sort of tradition that you have to work on, and it's a real serious commitment to make if that's what you want to do.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and I have had a lot of students that had gone that route, and they were working with very accomplished and skilled teachers. The problem was that it's so rigid. It's either, okay, are you going to follow the game plan here?
Right.
And, play this stuff that you're, barely having any enjoyment playing and feeling, kind of like frustrated because of, the difficulty or the whatever. Sometimes it's just addressing even like your own personality,
right,
and what you need to work on, to be able to be more patient, or to just
I feel like
give things a little bit more work, because you might have the tendency to pick up things easily. It's like we get used to, like, sometimes, like, play a video game and you play it for 10 minutes and you're pretty good at it.
Right.
And, there's that instant gratification thing, and music doesn't always unfold itself to you like that. And so you can, have difficulty when something's challenging to just want to kind of, like, not give it enough work, You could go on for hours talking about every different scenario where, learning how to play music either succeeds or doesn't succeed. But I've seen that a lot of times, and it's a shame if somebody's like taken piano lessons for like 10 years but hated every second of it. Yeah. And even like gotten pretty worked their way up to like intermediate advanced stuff, and they can
just
play
have
well,
zero interest in it
but their
that.
emotional connection to the music is almost zilch, and then they
Yeah.
quit the second that they are allowed to quit. And what a shame.
Yeah, I knew a drummer like that. He was freaking robotic good. I mean, like, he could play anything you told him to play.
Right.
But he kind of lacked the emotion.
Right.
Because, like, I played with Wayne. You're familiar with Wayne. Wayne's the best drummer I've ever played with.
Yeah, he's a real great player.
Because he's got the skills and the chops. He might not be the best drummer in the world, but goddamn can he play with some emotion. Like, the emotion's there, man, and it just makes you want to play. Like, he's connected, but this other drummer, I don't want to name names because in case anybody's listening, I don't want to,
Sure.
But he was like one of the worst drummers to play with because he wasn't into the music.
Right.
And one time I talked to him, and he's like, I'm not really good at music. Because I asked him, I says, well, what do you listen to? What are you into? And he's like, I don't really listen to a lot of stuff. He's like, getting good at the drums is really hard for me because it's like math. Like, he looked at it, it's just mathematic equations.
Which it can be. Music can be reduced to like a very technical oriented, kind of thing, which that's just one part of the whole aspect of being a good musician to me. And you should take it serious at a certain point. I have regrets that I wasn't more together and considerate of technique when I was younger, but I just had to go through that. That was my journey, that I had to kind of like learn piecemeal and kind of wander a little bit and be kind of self-taught and pick up things through various sources, and then there came times when I was like, okay, I've actually come to the point where I can appreciate the value of like sitting and practicing fingerings and working on just technical considerations or whatever.
Sure.
But if you have no connection with the soul of the music, boy, you're not going to enjoy it.
No.
It's just going to seem like a real...
I watched this dude just walk away, man, because he was just like not making the dough. He thought like I'd just get real good, mechanically good, be able to lay down everything, and then make a shit ton of money as a band. And it's like, or in bands and stuff, and that didn't pan out for him. And I don't think he's touched the drums in forever, but he's... It's tough, just such a weird thing, man. I just don't understand how you can play an instrument and then like not be into music. It
seems like the logical thing is you decide to play an instrument because you have a love of music, or something intrigues you.
Yeah,
with music.
absolutely.
Like, how do they do that? How does it work?
Uh-huh.
I have just as much respect for a great physicist or mathematician as a great musician. Because there was something that, their curiosity drove them to learn more, and, then it never ends.
Uh-huh.
And so, it's just a lifelong pursuit, and that kind of puts you in a humble place, which I think is good.
Yeah, you're never as good as you want to be. You
you
always just try to get better, right?
You can definitely, and I have been guilty of sometimes, being too hard on myself.
Yeah.
Because you think you should. The common mistakes, comparing yourself to somebody else.
Right.
Whether famous or not famous, and
yeah, it's a thing hard. You got to get to where, you have your inspiration, you have the things you listen to, but you have to find your own voice at some point, and nobody is 100% original, because we've all been listening to music all growing up. So you're pulling influences from everybody that you've listened to your whole life, but you do have to somehow find your own voice. Like, just be authentic. Like, when you've absorbed it all, and then you just you let out whatever all this does to you to make you do this. But if you're trying to copy somebody on purpose, like, I want to be as good as this guy, so I'm going to fucking copy him verbatim. It's like you can do it a little bit, but you gotta have your own voice. I mean, isn't that what really?
You'll have to transcend that phase.
Right. Almost
every great musician who found their own voice managed to make that transition between, okay, I right now Woody Guthrie is everything to me, and I sing all of his songs, and I even try to sing like him, and then at some point you find your own voice, which is a mysterious process.
It is.
And some people, probably just live in agonizing self-doubt about whether they have ever made it to that stage.
It's really, really hard, I think, to be 100% honest. But isn't that the music you tend to gravitate towards when you feel like the person playing and singing and the lyrics, there's no bullshit? That's just honest. And sometimes when you're honest with your lyrics, you start like second guessing it, like, oh God, man, are people going to think I'm like sappy or some pathetic thing, or my lyrics are dumb? If you're being honest, who gives a shit?
Right.
Some people are going to love it. Some people might think you're dumb. Who cares?
Learning to just trust your instincts and, go with what comes from inside of you.
If you're being you, who else can be that?
Yeah. That's the greatest lesson and the hardest lesson to learn as far as being a musician. Besides, just how much work there is, ongoing work.
Mm-hmm.
You can never really just rest on your laurels. You're only as good as your last gig or whatever,
Right.
And it's so demoralizing sometimes how fast things will degrade, or you're like, oh man, I haven't played for 2 months. Damn, I sound horrible or whatever,
Yeah.
But hopefully you're always able to remember what you even got involved with it in the first place, and know that it brings you relaxation or a creative outlet. I've probably every little phrase I have is some sort of like cheesy like self-affirmation thing, but we all have to have a creative outlet. That's how I look at it.
Absolutely.
And so,
well, you always seem
God
like you're
music.
having fun. Like one of the things, we've met each other a few times in passing through Salt Lake and gigs and stuff like that, but your Instagram feed is one of my favorite ones. It just cracks me up. Like, you just seem like you're having a goddamn good time in life. I'm assuming that that is true. I think a lot of times people tend to just always put like the positive shit on the internet and never like the bad stuff. I'm guilty of that sometimes, but I am truly having a good time.
Right. I think, obviously we all think about it twice before, we share with the world like how miserable or depressed or, what a tough time we're having. Because we, don't want to bum anyone out.
Or feel like you're trying to get some pity party coming your
exactly.
way, right? Yeah.
And, there's times that I am kind of down in the dumps. But in general, I guess, I feel like there's so much of that self-expression that I'm not interested in, that people, that's what they want people to like sympathize with them or something. Right. I don't know.
That's what your friends are for, man.
I just kind of, if I'm going to like put something out there on the internet, I want it to be entertaining or, kind of lighthearted. That just reflects my personality.
So let's talk about that. So you're a musician, but and Timechimp is your Instagram feed. That's
right, and it's like kind of a solo project. That's like my moniker for if I DJ or I do like electronic music. I have like a SoundCloud, a Timechimp SoundCloud account.
Yeah, I've been listening to it. There's all sorts of crazy shit on there.
And yeah, that's my spot, or that whole kind of artistic persona is like my thing, to just be as weird and out there as I want to.
Yeah.
And even then, I consider myself a pretty not that crazy a person, although
you're a fucking weirdo, man. Let's not sugarcoat it, dude.
Some people tell me that's like, yeah, man, I think because I say, my songs don't like, make anybody feel weird, and it's like, no, man, I think some of your songs do make people feel weird.
I like it. I love it. I think it's funny, man.
Well, yeah, good. Then you're my target audience.
Yeah, man.
Because I just want people to know it. I'm kind of doing it just to have fun.
So how did you get into like the bath bomb?
So bath bombs are that was a real kind of fork in the road, unexpected thing. Like, my wife had some bath bombs, and I was like, what are these? And she's like, it's a bath bomb, you put it in the bath. And it's like, okay, can I try it? And she's like, sure. And so I tried it, and I was like, oh yeah, that was kind of nice, because I am a person who always takes baths, whatever that says about my psyche, I don't know, but
it means that you know how to like relax for a minute.
Right, I like reading books in the bathtub. And
you're not in a big
like
damn hurry.
Yeah,
you're like in a relaxed little bit.
And
I wish I could do that more, man. I'm like always like, gotta do this. I need to figure out a way to do that.
And then I don't know if it was a couple weeks or months later or something, I think I'd like kind of paid a tiny bit more attention to like the world of bath bombs, because there's all these people that's like their whole Instagram identity is tied into bath bombs. Like they demonstrate the goth bomb or something, and like you see their hand put this bath bomb in the bathtub, and like they had like thousands of followers and things like that. And I just thought, well, would it be funny if I just started doing my own bath bomb reviews, but make it 100% Timechimp, my own kind of bizarre personality or whatever, and no boundaries, no limits, because I have some very at least the way I would guess a person who doesn't know me would think, kind of strange, diverse,
fucking weird as shit, but interests. It's hilarious. It's so funny, man.
I am really obsessed with 50s easy listening music.
Yep.
And I'm really obsessed with 90s techno music. In addition to, I love all kinds of other kinds of music too. Most of my stuff that I've done in the past with bands has been like rock. Yes, like genres are kind of tiresome to worry about too much, but anyway, like I just figured, okay, I'll just do these weird bath bomb reviews and just like wrap it all up in one package. And so anything that I might have wanted to do in the past that was like, oh, make a techno music video, or I'll curate great albums of vocal music from the 1950s, like female vocal music from the 50s. I'll just wrap it all up into bath bomb reviews because I just figure it's so kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Dude, the David Hasselhoff one, that is
like that
fucking
one?
hilarious, man. You're all, hey,
And I think
country voice, hey, you got some big words over there.
I liked, I never consider myself any kind of actor, but when I was like a teenager, I had buddies and we would like make home movies and stuff like that.
And those camcorders came out, man. You're like, oh, dude, let's do this.
High-8, homemade, just silly, dumb movies. If you were especially brave, you could watch. There was one we made called Escape to Stunt City. That was like about.
That sounds crazy.
It was kind of like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but about a kid who wanted to become a stuntman or something. Because my friend, he really was earnestly, that was his goal in life, was to become a stuntman.
Was he crazy?
Was he
missing?
He was pretty. Just whatever you call it, driven. And he kind of backed down from risking his life on a daily basis, you know what I mean? But that was cool, and that just was kind of my gateway into the creativity of like shooting a video and editing it. Even though I never really had the money to afford really nice equipment, or didn't dedicate the time to become a really professional filmmaker. I always thought that was fun, making little home movies. I enjoy that with making bath bomb videos too. I like kind of thinking about what's the scenario for this one.
What's your favorite one? What's the one you're the most proud of?
What's the one I'm most proud of? It's like I've probably forgotten like 75% of the one, because I kind of just
the one you just did where you came out with the wig on and looked like, oh my god, that like scared the shit out of me.
It was like a Goo Goo Dolls tribute.
Yeah. All of a sudden you came out in the water in the tub and you have this. I was like, did he? Because like at first I was like, did he put the face on, or like I didn't know if that was like an edit that you did. Or I'm like, oh shit, he's wearing a wig.
I made one that was called Louder Than a Bath Bomb. That was, I kind of took it on as an attempt to make like a 60-second music video. So I had one of my techno tracks that I could have done a 8-minute mix of it, but instead I got out my recording equipment and tried to make a 60-second mix of the tune, and then I made a video. And whenever I make the videos, I try to do it really fast. It's kind of like a challenge, or it's like part of my process. Is
like, don't overthink it.
It's like, don't because I can do that. I can labor over something until it's run out of any life. And so it's just like, there's going to be some parts where the seams show, and, there's a bad edit, or I could have film something better. The camera wasn't very stable. And I could go that direction, and just keep trying to make it more and more and more professional looking, or spend so much time. Then it would take all the joy out of it for me, because it's just about if the mood struck me and I had a couple hours, okay, maybe I'll record myself singing the Gilligan's Island theme song, and then I'll make a bath bomb video where it's like Gilligan's Island, because old TV shows are another influence.
Oh, they're great.
On my bath bomb videos.
I used to watch Gilligan's Island all the time, and I never understood the premise. I didn't find this out till later, that they were on a 3-hour tour, and they're just lost forever. Same thing with Three's Company. I used to watch it all the time as a kid. I had no idea he was pretending to be gay, so he could live with the girls.
So he could live with the other two girls in the apartment.
But I loved the show. I watched it all the time.
Well, I mean, I guess part of that's maybe this nostalgic thing, this kind of trying to tap into the happiness of childhood.
People did more with less back then. So they didn't have all the special effects and all this crazy stuff. So they had to get more creative. I think about that with like the original Star Wars. It's like, why was it so good?
Yeah.
Because they had like limited resources, they had limited stuff. Like they couldn't go into all, like one of the best examples is they couldn't go into all the detail of how big the Empire was.
Right.
So they just did this one shot with the big ship flying over the little ship right at the beginning. You're just like, shit.
That shows you.
They just had to get creative,
right.
man.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because like that's what I do. Like I don't think I'm some super creative person with what I'm doing here. I don't like when you watch the YouTube videos. They're not like super, because like you watch some podcast videos and some of these things, and they're just cutting, like trying to grab your ADD attention. It's like shift.
Yeah.
The voices change.
I call that trying to be commercial.
Yeah, and it's
in the same sense as with music.
Quality.
Like I know what it sounds like to make a recording that sounds like a commercial recording right now.
Sure.
And that changes over time, you know. What was commercial in the 80s is different than what was commercial now,
Right.
And, if you have the right equipment and expertise and time, I guess, that's something that could be your ambition. It's like, all right, this is going to be legit commercial.
Right.
But if you're doing something for fun,
right,
I think that
Who
takes
gives
so much joy out of it to try to like worry about. I mean, and everybody has a different personality or enjoyment level. Some people maybe they find it relaxing to like, edit their podcast, or video cast or whatever you call it, if it's video combined with audio, and just make it as slick and like boom 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 boom. When I've done a podcasting in the past, I did like kind of edit out some of the dead air or the part where I was going or saying the same thing 15 times in a row or whatever. But I feel like what was the thing that kind of got you started with this podcast?
With this, for me, well, I started a podcast with my buddy Clay called Geeking on Music, and he's still doing it. He moved to Texas, and so we just kind of went different ways on that. No hard feelings. We're still good buddies and everything else. So, like, I kind of got my feet wet in it.
That was your
we did
first experience.
Yeah,
with
and
it.
we did some cool stuff. We did like a 3-part series on Uncle Tupelo from like the beginning. Oh man,
just
and we
kind
put
of
a lot
doing a
of work
survey
in that.
of their
and we had a lot
catalog.
of people that were really stoked about that. So I mean, it got off the ground a bit. It was cool. But with this, it's like I play in a band called the Swinging Lights, and Chris and I, we've been basically the ones that started the band. Him and I have been doing this type of thing for a long time. Not the podcast, but
not
the
the
band
podcast,
thing together.
but your music.
Yeah, and we talked, and I was always bitching about, God, like Utah's got a lot of talent, a lot of real good musicians and talent, and only a handful of like venues where people can get anything out of, really. Like there's no like launching pad. Like the Velour's one, bands have like blasted out from the Velour. There's a few good venues to play around here that treat the bands real good, but there's not like this outlet here.
There is a shortage of performing spaces.
Yeah,
and
so
you kind of have to make them yourself and like scrabble together.
Yeah, and how's anybody going to hear about anybody? So for me, like me and Chris were talking, it's like, well, why don't we start a podcast? And when we first started, it was kind of like him and I chit-chat. We're trying to work out the bugs. We're doing some Skyping stuff, and it just all kind of didn't work real well. And then I had this bus, and I've been listening to podcasts of people who've been podcasting out of the bus, and I almost sold this thing,
Right.
So just working on it, it's a fucking headache, keeping it running and keeping it reliable and everything else. But then I was like, I could do the podcast out of this, and that'd be kind of cool, man. Like get people to get in the bus, play some songs, talk about music, and like once that idea came, I was like, how am I going to pull this off? Because I don't have a shit ton of money.
Right.
I don't have like a film crew.
Right.
So I started doing a bunch of research, and I found this really cool little camera, and this camera's got like pretty great audio capturing abilities, and it captures a good picture. It's wide enough. It does like a real wide thing, so I can capture the whole thing. And so like I've just been working the bugs out, and every time I feel like it gets better and better, you know.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But this is the part that's fun for me.
You like
this is great
conversation and the kind of interaction
fucking love it.
with other musicians.
Trying to like mix and edit and everything after this, that's the part I don't enjoy very much. It's hard. Like it just takes so much time and I don't do a whole ton. Like this has simplified it a lot.
Right.
But I still have to like make it look
you
somewhat
still want
right?
it to be as watchable.
Yeah.
Watchable doesn't mean it has to be commercial.
No.
But just watchable.
I can't watch that commercial shit. It bothers me.
Yeah, me too. I mean, unless there's some really talented people involved.
Right.
And, you know, it's kind of like that is what they're doing. Just like...
But when it's somebody's voice talking and then another person comes in and finishes their sentence and they're switching back and forth all the time, it's an ADD trick that they use to keep your attention. It has the opposite effect.
Yeah, that fast-paced stuff that is just one step removed from the morning radio host kind of cadence.
And I don't like interviews.
Isn't really my thing.
Where it's like I sat down, Greg, and I've got these questions, and I'm just going to ask you these questions. I don't care about you as a person. I'm just going to try to ask these questions, and like I don't like that. That bores me to tears. Like my favorite podcast, one of my favorite ones to listen to is Joe Rogan.
Right, I've listened to a few of his.
Yeah, and he gets, you know, there's some people I'm not really interested in. You know, I'm not like big into, you know, some of the stuff he gets on, but he gets such a variety of people.
He does. He gets like.
And he knows very how to just chit chat with them.
Yeah,
and that is like that's engaging for me. It's a conversation. It's not an interview.
Yeah, that's true.
Interviews are dumb.
That's
man.
true. Interviewing, well, and it has such a sterile kind of, you know, air of importance to it. You know, like okay, this is the interview. What you say.
Yeah.
Is going to be set in stone
forever. And the person
forever.
doing the interview might not even know who you are. Not give two flying shits about you. It's like their team put all the notes together and this is what's happening, right? Like I remember years ago I was in a band and we were on Park City TV and we got an interview. And we were playing songs, you know, we were like, this is great, man, we're going to be on TV, wow, you know, and we got up there and we played some songs and then they had like an interview partway through. And it was fucking dumb. It was stupid. The band I was in was called Vicious Starfish. And the guy's like, so Vicious Starfish, huh? Is that like an ill-mannered sea bass? And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Did you just come up with that right now? Or did you think about that when you were writing your stupid notes? Like,
you don't like that scripted kind of like...
It's not. It just doesn't have that authenticity.
Broadcaster mode.
Yeah. I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Well, you're doing something that really helps break down that barrier of having it here in the van.
I hope so, man. I think it's catching on. Who knows? I'm just gonna keep doing it because I enjoy it, and we'll see what happens.
That's the same with bath bomb videos.
Once some of those bath bomb videos go viral, though, dude, it's the sky's the limit. People just don't know about it yet. Yeah, man. That shit is fucking funny, man.
I treat it. I guess I have just kind of a strange counter streak in my personality. I think like if people ignore it, then it's succeeding, kind of a thing.
Well, so my wife, man, she is very particular about what she chooses to listen to, what she chooses to watch. Like she's very picky about how she spends her time. Right. And critical in a lot of ways. And I showed her your Instagram feed because I'd been following you for a while. Right. And I'm just like, one morning we were laying in bed. It was Saturday morning. And sometimes we just sit and show each other stuff on Instagram. We laugh and everything else. Right. Like there's some feeds, and I'm like, dude, you got to check this shit out. I started playing her, and she was like almost in tears laughing. She's like, oh my God, man. And then we just kept watching more and more and more of them. And now she follows you, man. She thinks it's hilarious. Right. Well, they're great. They're entertaining, and you never know what's going to come next. Like it's all over the damn
I was
place.
having a chat with parents of one of my students, and they followed me on Instagram, and he was telling me, he enjoyed it, and he said it's kind of like Twin Peaks. Like every time you don't know what will happen, and I didn't consciously set out to make it like that, but I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of true. That is sort of the, each one has the rhythm. Same type of kind of artistic feel to it. Like there's a quality of it that's okay. We're watching Cheers. So it's in a bar, right? There's always the bathtub. There's always like something, but
the content, the music that you like the Sun Ra one.
Yeah.
Like I just heard about Sun Ra a few years ago.
Oh yeah, I've been a huge fan.
That was great, man.
For maybe like I worked at a record store when I was about 19 or something, and I just stumbled onto one of his records there in the jazz section in the record store, and then I always joke to people that like, some people are Grateful Dead fans, and some people are, what else is there, like, I guess there's like Fish and other bands like that where they got like hundreds of bootleg recordings and hundreds of albums or whatever. And Sun Ra, that's his situation. He just recorded hundreds of albums,
so many.
And so that was for me. That was my Grateful Dead. Is like becoming obsessed with Sun Ra and trying to track down all 900
of his albums. Oh, they got all decked out. Every show they played, all dressed up. It was like really just super odd, but awesome.
Well, yeah, that's what I like about it, is that desire to put on a show, and like a spectacle, that really connects and resonates with me with live music. There are people who can grab your attention in such a way that they're not, doing anything too spectacular, but you're hanging on their every breath.
Yeah, and there's no monitors, there's no flashy shit, but you're still just like, whoa.
That's a rare talent for sure. And
did you ever go to like a Vile Blue Shades concert?
Sure.
They were playing? Like they're I think as far as Utah goes, they're a perfect example of that. Just, I don't know what the fuck that band was. I don't know if they found all the outcasts in Salt Lake and put them together in a band, but god damn, when they got on stage, it was just like, this is some crazy shit.
I recall at a couple of their concerts being amazed at how the audience reacted to their
well, I went to high school with their lead singer Ryan,
show.
The big tall goofy dude.
Yeah,
I went to high school with him, and he was way into like Jane's Addiction and some of these other bands, and so I think he pulled a lot of that influence, because they had the girls dancing on stage and all that type of stuff. But I like the live performance, man. I don't really go to shows that are bigger than like the Depot anymore.
Right.
Because what's the point? Going to a live show is expensive and it's inconvenient if it's far away, like compared to sitting at home and listening to an album. So when you go, like, what's the whole point? Like, you want to watch.
You want to have an experience.
Exactly, man. But if the band's this big, like, what kind of an experience is that, man?
That's definitely the rub right there, is unless you can afford to get the front row tickets that are $300 or whatever,
right,
it's not going to be much of a concert experience.
Exactly.
You're kind of just like glorified watching TV or something.
That's one of the cool things about Utah, is most bands that are like up and coming, that are starting to get big,
right,
we're kind of like their pass-through joint. So like they might not always land on a weekend, but you can see some really fucking cool bands at small venues. Yeah. Like I've seen so many good bands like Urban Lounge and Kilby Court.
Even sometimes some legends like Gary Newman came here and played a concert earlier this year at the Metro Music Hall,
that's
which is a small venue.
Yep, absolutely.
So like Gary Newman, that's like, amazing that he was playing in such a small venue, and people, you could be like 5 feet away from him,
Yep. If it's not like the Depot, like I said, is probably the biggest venue that I like to go to indoors. Outdoor, Red Butte is killer here in Utah. But anything bigger than that, it's like I'd rather just stay home and listen to their record. Save myself the hassle of getting there, and why not just listen to the record at that point?
Well, I wish that I made more time for going to hear live music, because it's a big part of your perspective as a musician, is to see other musicians.
Sure.
And to, just remind yourself sometimes that it's fun listening's the greatest pleasure.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And sometimes I just, between everything I'm trying to do with playing in the bands and projects I'm involved in, and my teaching and working my other full-time job, it's easy sometimes for me to just be, not tonight.
Come home and throw a bath bomb in the tub.
Come home and make a bath bomb video instead. But
I'm gonna relax.
I do need to go see more new live music,
Right.
like groups that I had. I remember when I first was getting into, being a part of the music scene here in Salt Lake, and it wasn't always just like a band that I was opening up for
Right.
with some other band I was in. Is sometimes just cool, so and so's playing a concert tonight. All right, I'll check them out.
Yep.
They might be good, they may not be, but that's invaluable in terms of just
For
staying
sure.
connected to live performance.
For sure. I that's one of the things that's kind of been a side effect, I guess, of doing this, is I'm starting to get reconnected with with
I'm
fellow
jealous.
musicians.
I'm
what
jealous.
I mean?
I there's been a definite period of years now where slowing down a little bit with how often I'm involved with live music myself, or I guess I play a lot of gigs with a country band that I'm in, but
What band is that?
it's called Triggers and Slips.
I didn't know you were in a country band.
Yeah.
Triggers and Slips?
Yep, I play
I gotta write
keyboards.
this shit down, man. I'm gonna
Yeah.
look that up.
Check it out. They're
Is
they're
there?
a
Do you
great
guys have
band.
stuff to listen to?
Yeah,
on
yeah.
here?
There should be a web page and a Bandcamp, I believe,
I'm like,
or a SoundCloud that you can go.
I don't know
check
what
out.
happened, but like the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've really got into like outlaw country music. Man. Like,
I bet
just
you'd like it
can't-
then.
I
Like
can't get enough of it.
we
John
play a lot
Prine,
of we play a
freaking-
lot of stuff like Waylon Jennings, Towns
yeah,
Van Zandt,
Waylon, Towns, dude, so good.
Steve Earle.
Mm-hmm.
There's original material too,
Right.
and so that band's a real working band. So we'll go play a gig where you gotta play the whole night.
What do you play?
Keys.
You
in
play
that
the
group.
keys?
Yeah.
Do you
and
sing in it too?
Yeah, I do backup vocals, and every once in a while
Are
I
you pretty good
sing
at like
a number.
that country, that
Yeah.
parlor keys?
I don't have this plugged in yet, but yeah, that's one of the
I love
pleasures.
country
That's one of the
piano,
pleasures
man.
of playing in that group, is getting a chance to keep my honky tonk chops going, and I like playing in that style.
Yeah, it's fun. It's so fun.
It's just another form of American music that
Yep.
I have a connection with. I'm always learning stuff. Like I'll hear a song or learn a song. It's like, how come I never knew about that?
Well, that's what keeps
You
it
know?
so much fun.
Yes.
Like it's a never-ending sea of
you'll
learning,
never
man.
you'll never know all the great songs and all the amazing performers and whatever. It's just a constant. I struggle to engage with what's more contemporary
Uh-huh.
and who just put out a great record this year.
Right.
Yeah, who just put out what was a great country album that emerged, in the
Sturgill
last
Simpson.
couple of
You
years.
ever
Yeah, I've
listen to
heard
him?
that one. Mm-hmm.
What about Tyler Childers? Or Childers? I still don't know how to pronounce that. He's in the same vein. I think
I don't think
Sturgill
I don't
produced
think
his
I've
album.
listened to that
I'll
one
send
yet.
it to you.
I'd
He's
like
good,
to
man.
hear it.
He's up and coming. We just saw him at Urban Lounge, but he's like blowing up everywhere else. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Like, these guys are blowing up in Nashville and everything. Then they come through Salt Lake,
Yeah,
and you get to see him at this little
Having a
teeny
chance
place.
to see a performer like that at that stage before your only option would be to see him at the Vivant Center,
Yep.
whatever it's called. I call it the Delta Center because
I
that's
still
what it
call it
was
the
for
Delta
me.
Center, too.
But
Yeah,
that's really the place you want to see somebody when they got that momentum building, and
it's the best. It's the
Yeah.
best, man, and it's inspiring. Like you walk away from that situation, like, God damn it, man, I gotta get at it. I gotta get better. Gotta keep
right, yeah.
digging in,
So, that's something I don't necessarily regret, not trying to be a responsible person and get some sleep every night, but still I'd like to go see more
Yeah.
live music.
It gets tougher when you're. It's kind of funny that we're to this point in our
Yeah.
lives. When you get older,